We are seeing a major swing to the winter side of things, meaning multiple winter storm chances with massive snowfall totals are on the way. Welcome everyone, a happy Wednesday to you, November 26th. And I must say, we have truly switched into quite a wintry pattern for the days ahead. I have been mentioning for some time now that I expect December to be a very snowy and wintry month. The way things are looking, we might end November with significant snow for many, and the start of December appears absolutely ripe for a very productive snowfall track. This could even affect areas much farther east, including large cities like Philadelphia, New York, and Baltimore. Yes, I am speaking of your areas. You have a chance for snowfall to begin the new month. But before we get to that, we have other large snowfall totals from the current storms that are still to come to discuss. Now, if you are new to our channel, I would like to extend a warm welcome. If you have not yet done so, please go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Taking these steps is entirely free. It does not cost you a single penny, nor does it sign you up for any service you need to worry about. All it does is keep you weather-wise and informed on all these snowfall chances that I'm continuing to track for you. Alright, let us waste no time, as we have a great deal to talk about today. We will be mentioning 3 separate storms, so let us go right ahead and delve into the details. Now, you can see the general pattern here next to me. This is the latest run from our American computer model, and it shows that snowy potential. We have one storm moving through right now, and it is going to produce significant lake effect snow. Then another storm arrives that will produce more heavy snow, but for areas slightly farther south into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Then, with storm number 3, right around a week or so from now, that is when the coastal Northeast could potentially be impacted. If not there, then at least the interior, perhaps the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and even portions of what you might consider the Southeast could get in on that activity. We have a lot to discuss here with these 3 storms. So let us go ahead and start by giving you the latest on our first storm that we are dealing with at this moment. Here are the current alerts that are out there with that storm system. We have wind advisories here in these beige colours up into the Midwest. We have winter weather advisories here in the purple colours. Winter storm warnings are in pink, and blizzard warnings are in more of that orange colour, covering the upper peninsula of Michigan and even portions of northern Wisconsin. So this will create a travel nightmare for folks up in the Great Lakes for your Thanksgiving. The snow is really beginning now for many of us. It has already fallen for others up in the northern plains, and it is going to continue falling now through Thanksgiving, through Black Friday, and then by the time we get to Saturday, that is when the next storm system is going to work its way in. We will of course have new alerts to talk about by that time, when that one begins to move through. What about the radar right now? Well, there is that travel nightmare I told you about. We have snow, and it is really coming down heavily, folks. Up towards Thunder Bay, down into the western upper peninsula of Michigan, and into much of Wisconsin. Minneapolis received snow overnight. If you are seeing snow out there right now, please let me know. And also, please let me know where you are watching from, so I can gauge how the models and everything are performing. It always helps me out. And we already have rain changing over to snow here in the mitten of Michigan. You can see, areas near Traverse City, down towards Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, are starting to get in on some of that snow. And then, over into the Northeast, it is just good old-fashioned rain for now. But lake effect snow will also pick up for areas here over the coming days. Alright, that is what it looks like right now. Let me show it to you on the model guidance. Let us time it out for you, and allow me to show you who could end up counting the snowfall totals in feet from this, instead of just inches. Here is one of our mesoscale high-resolution models, the RGEM model. I think it is doing quite a good job here of showing this storm's evolution. This is for this afternoon, right around the time this video is being released. You will notice many of you are starting to see the rain continue to work through in the northeast, but changing over to a shield of snow in western Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, especially the western section there of the Upper Peninsula. By the time we get to overnight tonight, right around midnight, we could still see some showers working through New England, in Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, and even down for our friends in Boston and Rhode Island. But at this point, it is really becoming the lake effect show, folks. The snow will be continuing, with very heavy, intense bands of snow, as I sometimes say, into much of western Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. We have snow bands breaking out off of Lake Erie. Places like Buffalo, the Tug Hill Plateau, and down into northeast Ohio are starting to get in on some of that snow. And by the time you are waking up on Thanksgiving morning, as you are getting up, you are starting to get the turkey out on the counter, you are buttering it up, getting ready to put it in the oven, and you have the Today Show on, watching the Macy's Day Parade. Yes, very heavy snow will still be coming off the Great Lakes. It will be clearing out for the I-95 corridor, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Southeast. Although cold air will be beginning to funnel in, so it is going to be a pretty chilly festive Thanksgiving. So, if your Thanksgiving and your Black Friday is the time you normally go to put up the tree, I know my family normally, we actually go get the tree on Black Friday and then put it up the next day. But either way, if you have decorative things coming up over the next couple of days, I think it will be pretty festive temperature-wise and snow-wise for some of us, as you will really see here in just a moment. The lake effect snow, however, will be continuing to crank all of Thanksgiving afternoon. This will be a travel nightmare for areas around Erie, Cleveland, and into the Tug Hill. It will still be coming in off of the Great Lakes into Michigan. Now, remember, these are going to be classic, narrow lake effect bands. It is a shield of snow right now for many of us, but it is going to turn into distinct bands by Thanksgiving evening. So, one town over could be getting a great deal of snow, and your town could perhaps just be seeing flurries. So please keep that in mind. For those of you that have lived up here for a long time, you already know that. But if you are new to the Great Lakes, just keep that part of it in mind. It is one of those things where you are going to have to monitor conditions in real time and have your radar app on you at all times. Here you go. By Friday morning, Black Friday, as you get out to shop, things will be starting to calm down a little bit. Maybe in Michigan. But the snow will now be really rockin' and rolling across New York State, Pennsylvania, and Northeast Ohio. The lake effect machine will be continuing to crank all through Black Friday and then even into the evening. But by that point, it will start to calm down a little bit off the Great Lakes. But as that calms down, look at what is ramping up back out west. We have another major winter storm to track that we will need to talk about. But before we talk about that one, let me show you the snowfall totals from the lake effect. And then we will break down that next threat that is looming. Alright, here is another mesoscale model that I think is handling the situation pretty well. This is now through about Friday afternoon or evening, and this is all just lake effect snow that you are seeing on the map. Outside of this tiny little bit, that is that next storm coming in. So again, we will focus on that one in a second, but for areas of Wisconsin and Michigan, this is what you could expect. I will be honest with you folks, I believe portions of the western Upper Peninsula are going to... We will be measuring snowfall totals in feet rather than inches. We are expecting more than 2 feet of snow there near the Wisconsin-Michigan border. This is occurring closer to the Great Lakes, where some of that warmer air from the lakes can move inland for a short distance. We are forecasting some very large snowfall totals. I also believe the northern lower peninsula of Michigan will receive a good foot, perhaps 1.5 feet or more of snow, with scattered totals farther down into western Michigan. We will see substantial amounts, though as you travel farther south, those amounts will decrease. However, we could still see a couple of inches in northeastern Indiana, right along the Michigan border, and into southern Michigan as well. But it is the northern lower peninsula and the upper peninsula that will be most heavily impacted, with some of the highest snowfall totals. And we certainly must not forget our friends in northern Wisconsin. You are also experiencing significant snowfall. Depending on when you are viewing this, there could still be a few leftover snow showers out in western Minnesota. But for the most part, the storm has passed for folks in that region. However, there is still quite a bit more to come for Wisconsin and Michigan. As the system shifts eastward, the northeast will also be impacted quite significantly with substantial snowfall. In some isolated spots, we will indeed be measuring the snow in feet, with more than a foot expected. This includes areas in portions of New York State, right along the Pennsylvania line. In the typical lake effect zones, such as northeast Ohio, I believe the closer you are to the Pennsylvania border, you could see 3 to 5 or more inches of snow from this, which would not be surprising. In isolated areas that experience the heaviest bands of snow, totals could be even higher. The Tug Hill Plateau near Watertown is expected to receive a significant amount, perhaps a foot or so, of snow. It is also possible that some of this snow could spread into the higher terrain of Vermont and New Hampshire. It may also extend up into western Maine. So, as you can see, there is a great deal of lake effect snow on the way. But if you are not being affected by this lake effect snow, some of you will be impacted by the next 2 storms we need to discuss. Let us now talk about storm number 2 and where it is headed. We will examine why it is forming, and then I will give you a preview of storm number 3, which I believe many of you will want to stay informed about. We are beginning to gain confidence in a high-impact winter storm that is expected right after Thanksgiving. This storm is expected to arrive this coming weekend. As a reminder, today is Wednesday, so we are looking at the period after Thanksgiving on Thursday, moving from Friday into Saturday. Now, let us look at what is happening in the atmosphere to cause this storm to develop. The large storm that is currently bringing the lake effect snow is also funneling much colder air into the lower 48 states. You can see this represented by the large areas of blue on our 500 millibar height anomaly map. It is important to remember that on this particular map, blue does not indicate snow. Instead, it signifies colder than average temperatures in a layer of the atmosphere that extends from the surface to about halfway up to space. This is the region where much of our weather occurs. This cold air will become established over the eastern United States by Thursday and Friday. This means we have cold air moving down from the north. What this will also do is create a very favourable storm track for a low-pressure system that is expected to develop east of the Rocky Mountains. The downsloping winds from the Rockies consistently help these low-pressure systems to form. This system will start out somewhat like an Alberta clipper, but it will eventually transform into a much stronger storm. It will travel along a ridge of high pressure, and as it does, it will interact with that large area of cold air, which sets the stage for another major winter storm. You can see this developing quite well on our vorticity map. This is one of my favourite tools to share with you, and it is a key tool that we use when forecasting. Vorticity simply means there is spin in the atmosphere. As you can see, we already have a great deal of spin around the Great Lakes region, and that is precisely where we are seeing the lake effect snow. So the map corresponds with our current conditions. Now, here comes our next system, moving into the Pacific Northwest. At this moment, it is still over the Pacific Ocean, so we will need to gather more data on it, and we will be getting that additional information soon. It appears that based on the early Friday morning weather balloon data, a system is beginning to form over the Pacific Northwest. As I have mentioned, we are observing a dip in the atmosphere, which has some rotation with it. As this system travels over the Rocky Mountains, it will move down the eastern slopes. Those downsloping winds will really help to amplify this storm system. This will stretch the vorticity, as we meteorologists say. In simpler terms, it will cause the storm to intensify more rapidly. and then it will travel along that boundary of cold air. You can see it right here on the map. By Saturday night, we have well-defined lift in the atmosphere. The low pressure centre will likely be located somewhere directly over St. Louis at that time. It will then begin to move northward, right up through the Ohio Valley and into the northeast. Everything to the north of that track will be in the area for potentially significant snowfall. Then, following right behind it, a new piece of energy arrives. This one is tracking even farther to the south. Yes, that is storm number 3, which we will discuss in just a moment. But before we do, let me show you the expected precipitation and snowfall totals with this second storm, which are trending higher. Alright, here is the latest run of the European forecast model, and it is depicting the system very well. All of this is the leftover lake effect snow by Friday morning. So, on your Black Friday morning, it will still be snowing steadily off the Great Lakes and into the northeast, though it will be calming down in Michigan by that time. Here comes our low pressure system, however. As I mentioned, the moment it encounters the downsloping winds of the Rockies, it begins to intensify, producing snow up into Montana and the Dakotas by your Friday afternoon. As we move forward in time, it looks as though a large band of snow will set up across much of Iowa, southern Minnesota, and the Dakotas. This is the forecast for very early Saturday morning, and as the storm progresses, folks, we see steady snow beginning to set up over Chicago. It could at least begin as snow in central and southern Illinois, and perhaps even start as snow in St. Louis. Eventually, the storm truly intensifies. The pressure drops to around a 1005 millibar low, and you can begin to see the rain-snow line establishing itself in more of an east-west orientation. This means we have heavy snow in Iowa, northern Illinois, and southern Wisconsin. It could even still be snowing in southern Minnesota. The snow begins to move into Michigan by Saturday night. Northern Indiana and northern Ohio will see some snowfall from this as well. The southern half of those states, however, will likely see the precipitation change to rain, but it will still be snowing steadily in Chicago and into Michigan. From there, it appears the storm will track up through the Great Lakes and into the St. Lawrence River Valley. Because of that track, it will be a primarily wet system for the northeast. Now, it could begin with a burst of snow for some folks, especially in the interior northeast. However, this looks to be all rain for the Virginias and the Carolinas. As we look ahead, though, it could bring some good snow up into Canada. And then the next system arrives. You may already notice it, as it is already visible on the map by next Monday, bringing snow even farther south. Before we discuss that system, however, let me show you the potential snowfall totals and some of the differences between the forecast models for storm number 2. Then, we will conclude our discussion by talking about the next storm in line, storm number 3. Alright, now let me show you the potential snowfall totals. If you will pardon the pun, let me snow you what is coming. We will begin by looking at the ensemble view of things, starting with the European models. I will then show you the GFS ensembles, which will give us a good idea of the differences between the two models and where some changes could still occur. Now, it is important to note, this map shows the total snowfall through what would essentially be midnight on Monday as we head into Tuesday. Because of that time frame, this map will also include the lake effect snow that has already fallen, so please keep that in mind. As it stands, the European model shows a solid average of about 2 to 4 inches of snow right through the heart of the region. This appears to be especially true for eastern South Dakota and extending up into southern North Dakota as well. However, we begin to see the highest totals in southern Minnesota and into Iowa, which are looking quite favourable for significant snow from this system on the European ensembles. Now, if we look at the GFS ensembles, you will see they are quite similar. Here is the European model, and here is the GFS. As you can see, there are slight differences, but they are not all that far apart, all things considered. Now, let's turn our attention to this next map, which is quite important as it shows where the truly significant totals are expected. And please remember, a good portion of this is lake effect snow that has already fallen, or I should say, would have already fallen by the time the next storm system begins to move in. It is important to keep that in mind. Everything I am circling here in black represents the new snow that is associated only with this upcoming storm. In fact, let me draw that a little more clearly for you. Everything within this area circled in black would be exclusively from the storm we are about to discuss. So please remember that distinction. I will even leave the black line there for your reference. Looking at this, I believe Iowa is going to be one of the areas most impacted by this storm, particularly in portions of eastern Iowa. We could see 6 to 12 inches of snow, making this one of the more significant snowfalls we have seen in some time, especially so far this winter. Obviously, this would be occurring during the last couple of days of November. I also believe that northern Illinois will receive some rather significant totals. For Chicago, a half a foot of snow is certainly a possibility with this system. Of course, we will have to see how the trends evolve between now and then, as this storm track could shift a bit farther north, and that would certainly change the forecast. However, I do see very reasonable chances for snowfall for you folks. The transition zone between rain and snow currently appears to be from St. Louis through central Illinois, central Indiana, and into central Ohio. That is the area where our forecast confidence is the lowest at this time. Our confidence is highest, however, for southern Wisconsin, much of Iowa, and northern Illinois. That appears to be the target area, where we could see anywhere from a half a foot to a full foot of snow, as depicted here by the European ensemble. Now, let's look at the GFS ensembles, which is a little less robust with the snowfall totals than the European model. Again, here is the European, and here is the GFS. You can see the GFS model has a similar target area, but with slightly lower totals. It also appears to be trying to bring a sliver of warmer air into the Chicagoland area. But even so, it still shows a solid average of about 3 to 5 inches. So, either way you look at it, it appears Chicago will definitely see some snow. The question is, how much? The higher end of the forecast right now is around 1 foot, while the lower end is perhaps 2 to 4 inches. I know that is a wide range, but we still have time to refine the details. Regardless of the exact amount, this could create some difficult travel conditions. Please remember, this is when many folks are returning home from Thanksgiving, so it is very important to take it slow and steady on the roads. Now, what about the Northeast? Well, for the most part, this looks to be a warmer event. But some snow is still possible. This map shows a 24-hour snow total, so it does not include any pre-existing lake effect snow. This is just from the next storm. The interior regions, particularly up in the Adirondacks and the mountains of northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, could receive a couple of inches from this system. However, it appears to be less significant compared to the lake effect event that we will see beforehand. Alright, that covers storm number 1 and storm number 2. Now, let's discuss storm number 3, which I know many of you are very interested in and have been waiting for. Let's take a closer look at it. We will discuss why it is forming, the uncertainties that remain, and how areas much farther east and potentially south could experience an early season winter event. We will begin, as we do with every storm, right where we left off. We are starting with the 500 millibar height anomaly map, and we will do the same here for storm number 3. Now, the timing on this system may seem far away, but in meteorological terms, it is really not that distant at all. This event is likely to unfold about 1 week from now, which, in the grand scheme of weather forecasting, is not terribly far into the future. For a local meteorologist such as myself here in Charlotte, this is the point when we begin to include it in the 7-day forecast. So this is not in what we would call no man's land. We are not looking at a 15-day forecast, but we are also not yet in the short-term, high-resolution model range. Therefore, there is still much to resolve. And how the current storm, storm number 2, unfolds will directly affect the potential development of storm number 3. But here is the general setup for you. Behind storm number 2, we have another surge of cold air funneling into the eastern United States. With each push of cold air, it tends to dig farther south and east. As that occurs, another trough, which is another piece of energy in the atmosphere, which I have circled for you right here on the map, is digging into the desert southwest. Because that cold air is sinking farther south and east, it is suppressing the main storm track. As a result, the next piece of energy rotating around this pocket of cold air is also forced to dig farther to the south. It is taking a path similar to this, developing down near the Gulf of Mexico, and then tracking up along the coast, much like what I have drawn on the map for you. And friends, that is a very favourable storm track for winter weather in places like the northern mid-Atlantic, the northeast, and potentially even along the coastline and into portions of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. That is an excellent track for snow, particularly in a month like January. But this would be occurring during the first few days of December. Therefore, it becomes a bit more complicated. It is certainly not a guaranteed event just yet, but I do like the overall setup that is appearing on many of our computer models. And it is not just on that 500 millibar height anomaly map. It is also showing up on the vorticity map. Let's take a look at Sunday afternoon. Here we can see storm number 2 unfolding over the Midwest. At the same time, we have another piece of energy right there, digging out of the west and into the Rockies. Notice how it digs down here on the European model, reaching all the way to the Four Corners region. And then it does not track north or cut inland nearly as quickly. It appears to move right along the United States. The energy associated with it suggests that a likely storm track would be somewhere near the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Alabama, and then it would probably travel directly through the Mid-Atlantic region, impact everything to the north of that track, in the areas I have circled here in blue. You have the cold air in place, and you have a storm signal to your south, which means we must start watching this very closely. Could we get some snow from this? The European model certainly suggests it is possible with this upper-level map. The GFS model is showing a similar scenario as well. There is that piece of energy out in the Rockies. It dives south and follows a path quite similar to the European model about 1 week from now. This would be for this coming Tuesday and Wednesday, so that is potentially less than a week away for some of us. So, we have the cold air and we have the energy. But what do the models actually show on the surface? Do they produce any snow? Let's take a look together, and then we will examine the most important data at this range, which is the ensemble snowfall data and what it is indicating. Alright, we will begin with the European model, which many of us consider to be very reliable. We are going to start the map on Sunday afternoon. Just for reference, today is Wednesday, and this map is for this coming Sunday, November 30th, which is the last day of the month. At that time, we will have the ongoing storm system. At this point, it is weakening for the Midwest, but is still bringing rain and snow to parts of the Northeast. However, the next area of energy is already on its way. You can already see it producing rain and snow in the Rocky Mountains. So it is just beginning to develop. The European model shows this system moving south into the plains, trying to generate some snow in Kansas and Nebraska by Monday morning and afternoon. And notice how the energy begins to combine with more energy from the southern stream. This will bring a great deal of rain to the southeast by Tuesday morning, but this then transitions into a snowstorm for the northeast. It looks like we can expect heavy, wet snow in northern New Jersey, up towards Scranton, and close to New York City, Hartford, and Providence. There will most certainly be snow in the interior regions. It appears the snow is getting very close to Boston, and for some communities, this will be a significant snowfall. For others, it will be quite significant, while the Mid-Atlantic will see mainly rain. But the cold air is in place, and the storm signal is present on the European model. Of course, there are still details to be determined. What about the GFS model? What does it indicate? Well, here we are, looking at the same time on Sunday afternoon. Here comes that system out of the Rockies. The cold air is much more dominant on the GFS model. Now, I am going to pause for a moment here. Alright, let's step back and consider this. This is the GFS model, so this is not an official forecast. I do not want you telling everyone that WCCCB meteorologist Gerald said we are getting ice and snow in Little Rock, or near southern Arkansas and into Louisiana. That is not what I am saying. I am simply showing you the data so we can review it together. I am showing you the possibilities that are on the table at this range. You will see it much more clearly in a moment with the ensembles, but we do have the cold air. We know that to be true, and we have the storm system. So a scenario like this is not a 0% probability, but it is the more aggressive model run at this time, and that would be the GFS, which, while not always incorrect, more often than not, its performance leaves something to be desired. By Tuesday morning, it depicts a full-fledged winter storm for West Virginia, Northern Virginia, Kentucky, and Nashville. It even attempts to bring snow as far south, as northern Mississippi. And it shows a major winter storm for the Interstate 95 corridor. It is, in fact, a nor'easter. This GFS model run shows significant snow right through the Interstate 95 corridor, a major snowstorm, and it even includes some northwest flow on the backside of the system for the mountains of the southeast. Alright, that is certainly an exciting prospect, but, it is only a week away. But a week is still a long time in forecasting, so there is a lot to sort out. Let us take a look at the ensembles. The operational models show something is there. Do the ensembles show something as well? I think that is an excellent place to conclude today's discussion. Let us go ahead and take a look, starting with the European ensembles. And you can see this is for Monday of this coming week, And you can see these are snowfall chances. This is essentially the chance of getting accumulating snow within a 24-hour period. So what is the chance of snow accumulating next Monday, in simple terms? You can start to see the chances increase right through the heart of the country as that storm system develops, running at almost a 50% chance for much of Kansas. There is a very high chance in the Rockies, as you would expect, for northern New Mexico and up into the Front Range of Colorado. Then, as we move forward in time, look at how this evolves. I will be honest with you folks, this is a very strong signal to see at this range. There is already more than a 50% chance of accumulating snow in the mountains of West Virginia. Much of New York State is showing good chances, as are all of Vermont, New Hampshire, and western Massachusetts. The chances are lower along Interstate 95, but I will tell you this is higher than it was yesterday. There is about a 1 in 5 chance of accumulating snow in Philadelphia. There is about a 1 in 4 chance in northern New Jersey, a 1 in 5 chance or so in New York, and a 1 in 4 chance through much of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. Boston has almost a 30% chance of seeing snow accumulate. Remarkably, the European model even gives a 1 in 10 chance for places like Greensboro, Statesville, and down into central Virginia and the Delmarva Peninsula. And then, quite good chances again in the Ohio Valley of seeing some sort of snow out of this as it works its way through. You can see the signal showing up quite clearly. The GFS ensembles, what are they showing? They are showing the same thing. Here is the signal. And I will be honest, folks, that is quite good agreement between the two models, that we have notable snow chances. Now, the highest chances right now, to name a few areas, are definitely in the interior of the northeast, which will still be favoured with this sort of setup. The higher terrains of the Appalachian chain, the mountains of West Virginia, the mountains of Virginia, and perhaps maybe even the mountains of North Carolina will be favoured in a situation like this. But places like Boston, Western Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, I would certainly say you are in the running here. Philadelphia and New York have lower chances, but they are definitely not zero with a system like this. And it is probably a similar situation, maybe a little bit lower than that, for our friends in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Where we would need many factors to align perfectly for a good outcome is a place like Charlotte, Raleigh, or Norfolk, down here in the Interstate 95 corridor of the Carolinas. It does not look all that favourable at the moment. But again, please remember, there is a lot of time for this situation to evolve. And I will leave you with this. I will show you some of the artificial intelligence model data. This is the European AI, and let us just summarize everything. So, we have the big snowstorm currently working its way through for many of us with lake effect snow. Here comes the next signal by early this week, and it will work on through. And then here is the European AI model. It is not as excited about the next one, but I would argue that is a good thing, because notice where it gets a little area of snow down here in Kentucky, the Virginias, and the mountains of North Carolina. The European AI model is much more suppressed with the third storm. That is generally where you want the models to be at this range. You want it to be more suppressed than amplified. So there is a lot to figure out with storm number 3. It ranges from a nor'easter with significant Interstate 95 snow to perhaps just some flurries for folks in the mid-Atlantic. Those are really the ranges with storm number 3. Before we even get there, we have a storm ongoing and storm number 2 on the way, with significant travel impacts right here during our Thanksgiving holiday. Alright folks, that is all I have for you in today's video. I have a couple of announcements here. I know tomorrow is Thanksgiving. I am going home tonight to spend it with my family. Due to things getting more active, I am going to bring all of my equipment with me. I will have a video for you tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. It is going to take a great deal for me to miss a day, with a pattern as active as it is right now. Also, if you live in Charlotte, we have the Novant Health Parade in Uptown tonight, the Thanksgiving Eve Parade, hosted by yours truly, from WCCCB Charlotte. So I will be there on the float. If you see me, please wave hello. I do hope you can join us. You can also watch on WCCB Charlotte in the evening. For those not local, you can enjoy the Thanksgiving spirit by downloading the WCCB Charlotte application to watch from home. Alright folks, have a wonderful day and please stay safe. We do have a good deal of snow coming, so be prepared. I will see you all again very soon.